We're just about to go live to YouTube. Okay, we are on YouTube as well.
Okay, so are we ready to start then?
I think so.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I'm going to start by reading a script that was prepared for us for our meeting today. So I'm going to bear with me as I read through the pieces that I have here. Hello, I am Patsy Zeller and serve as chair of the Education Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask the members of the Education Committee to respond to a roll call signifying their presence at this open meeting via Zoom and YouTube Live. Rebecca Sander. Becky, can you verify that you're on the call on the Zoom? Colton, is she trying to get on or?
Present.
Present, okay. Carol Bragdon. Carol Bragdon, are you present?
I am.
Mandy Karstetter.
Present.
Christina Rudisil.
Present.
Bernadette Federoff.
Present.
Karen Kidder.
Present.
Dee Blunenblest.
Present.
I also ask the following board staff members to signify their attendance. Carol Moreland, Executive Administrator.
Present.
Janelle Martin, Nursing Education Compliance Officer.
Present.
Chelsea Stephenson, Education Secretary.
Present.
On June 2nd and 11th of 2020, the board sent notice to the Meeting of Education Committee to all individuals who have requested notice of the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at the website or by sending an email to carolmoreland@ks.gov with the subject line request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. Public comment allows individuals to address the Education Committee about their concerns. However, the Kansas Open Meetings Act, which is known as KOMA, does not require the Education Committee to provide public comment or answer questions for individuals. As we will not know what comments or individuals may make, we would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter so that the public may listen and observe our discussion. Public comment will not be taken today due to that concern and because of this meeting conducted by Zoom and by YouTube Live, where the connection may be lost over time and the period for the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Because we are conducting this public meeting by Zoom and YouTube Live, I state for the record the following information. Number one, on June 2nd and 11th, 2020, the board sent notice of the meeting for the Finance Committee to all individuals who requested notice of the committee's meetings. Is that for the Education Committee? Carol Moreland? Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at that website or by sending an email to carolmoreland@ks.gov with the subject line request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. Number two, the notice contains the Zoom meeting identification number and password and the link for the YouTube Live to allow the public to attend the meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-5752 if the individual does not have access to a computer. Effective June 9, 2020, House Bill 2016 ratified Governor Kelly's emergency declaration due to the COVID-19 pandemic and extended it through September 15, 2020, but the requirements of KOMA were not suspended. We will be conducting this meeting pursuant of KOMA and KPPA period R period A period R period 16-20-1 concerning compliance with the coma during an emergency declaration. The Zoom virtual meeting and YouTube Live are the only mediums for interactive communication offered for this meeting. Each member of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state the person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Each participant to this meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are on mute when the participant is not speaking. Each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the results of the final vote. And the statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize by delegation each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any document on behalf of the board. The meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the board's website. The committee has the following items listed on its agenda: review of on-site packet, additions or revisions to agenda if needed, approval of minutes for the meeting held in December of 2019, announcements, nursing education compliance officer report, site visit reports, new business, unfinished business, petitions, agenda for the committee meeting in September 2020, and adjournment. The committee will now consider the first item on the agenda. Review of the on-site packet. We did have on-site packet, some things in that. Did everyone?
There should just be one item. This is Janelle with the staff. One item that was added, and that was some revision to guidelines for survey site visits. Thank you.
Some suggestions and a draft.
Right, to incorporate some ideas for virtual site visit when we get to that item.
Okay. Is there any additions or revisions to the agenda?
Patsy, this is Janelle again. The only revision I was, and this is up to you, I did, after I put the agenda together, there are a couple other major curriculum changes that involve IV therapy. I tried to put them all together so we could consider those all together. We can leave it as is, or we could move. There are Washburn Institute for Technology and Donnelly College also have requests. Their requests are a little bit broader than just IV therapy, so we can leave it as is, or if you want to consider all IV therapy together, we can move them up under the others when we get there, if you have a preference.
My preference is we could just leave it like it is if it involves more than the IV. Is the team okay with that, or do we need to make an addition, revision?
Sounds
Okay,
good.
well, go ahead.
I was
This is
just
Carol
saying.
Bragdon. It's fine with me.
Christina Rudisell is fine with me.
Okay, then I guess I can entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
I move to accept the agenda as printed. This is Karen.
Second, Bernadette.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. I'm going to ask you to say no today so I would know.
No.
Sounds like motion carries. Okay, thank you very much for that. Approval of the minutes is the next thing on the agenda for December 2019. Did everyone see a copy of that? Saw that. So is there any revisions or additions or anything we need to take care of for those minutes? Did anyone see anything?
No.
Okay, then I see we were appointed the motions. So the first one I see on here, did everyone get a copy of those motions and know about?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
Patsy,
so-
I'm first.
Okay, sounds good.
This is Becky, board member. I move to approve the December 10th, 2019 Education Committee meeting minutes as drafted.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Bernadette. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say, okay. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. That moves us to announcements. The only thing I really have in announcements is I think we have one or two, I see two new board members that are just visiting our education committee meeting today. Jay, do you want to introduce yourself real quick and tell us who you are?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jade Ramsdell. I am an accreditation specialist at Stormont Vale Health, and I'm very excited to be a part of the board and here with you today.
Thank you. And you come here as a public member, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And Jita, is that how you say your first name? You're muted, I think.
Yeah, sorry, it's Geeta.
Geeta, okay.
Yes, and Geeta Noble, public member, and just happy to be here.
Thanks for that. We appreciate you being here. The two new board members are just visiting, so they can decide which committee they might have some interest in, so we can appoint them to a committee for the next time. So they might be at several other committee meetings that we would see. So I appreciate that. Any other announcements that we have? Okay, hearing none, I'm just going to keep moving down the agenda then. Nursing Education Compliance Officer Report.
Okay, I think in deference to time, as we've done in the past, I'm going to highlight a couple of things from the report that I want to draw your attention to. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I did want to highlight that there are some new administrators in our ranks, and some would have been from March, but Benedictine College, Lynn Connolly is been appointed the interim director there. And that was effective in December. Coffeyville Community College, Heather Pullett has been promoted to the Dean of Career and Technical Education. So Anastasia O'Connell has been named the new director of nursing there. At Washburn University, Jane Carpenter has been the interim director, but she has been named the permanent director for Washburn University. Rasmussen announced in March they have an new interim administrator, Kelly McCullough. She's been with us before and we know her. And JB Magana is the new assistant director of nursing for the Rasmussen program here in Overland Park, Topeka. A couple other things I got notice. We have a couple of program administrators retiring in June this year. Jane Zaccardi at Highland will be retiring at the end of June, as will Karen Weigman with Mid-America Nazarene University. So we wish them well and really appreciate their contributions and presence with the nursing programs. One comment I will make, I am going to submit a corrected report. I did have one error under the minor curriculum changes for Mid-America. It's just a correction. They had two minor changes for descriptions, and I misrepresented one as a combining of a course, and that was incorrect. So I will submit that correction for my staff report. On page 3 there, I just want to highlight, I put in kind of an education corner. I've had several questions about the major curriculum changes and COVID. And I think I just wanted to highlight that for the present time, we're going to continue the way that we've been going, in that these are temporary changes in curriculum, that we are not requiring those to come through as a major curriculum change. If anything changes with that, we will let you know. If anything that you're doing, you've decided to make permanent, then it would need to come through as a major curriculum change, just as it always does. I think that's all that I would like to highlight, Patsy. I would entertain any questions if anybody has any about the report.
Any questions from the team? We do have a piece on the agenda that's a virtual site visits. I think we have a draft there. That's what we were talking about earlier. There could be more discussion about where we go from here as to changes in curriculum. So we'll get to that when we get to that part of the agenda. So thank you. Anything else Janelle?
I think that's all for me.
Okay. If no questions, we're just going to move right into site visit reports. I guess Janelle, you're back on.
Right. Okay, so first up, we have Rasmussen College had their BSN program site visit last October. And site visit, Carol Moreland and I were the site visitors for that visit. The strengths identified for the program, there are very extensive library resources and tutoring opportunities. They have a variety of clinical sites and they have contracts for more clinical sites than they were currently using, so they have good depth. Students are very happy with the smaller class sizes and quarterly start times and the flexibility of the program, and they would recommend the program to others. They're willing to make changes when outcomes are not coming up to expectations. They had several things in the minutes that showed that process. NCLEX prep information is included in their resources and available to graduates for an indefinite period after graduation, which is a nice resource for them. Tremendous administrative support for the nursing programs. The employers verbalize satisfaction with their graduates. They have strong student services support, and they have a new role at their program. It's called a support specialist, and it connects a person that's very connected to the students. Some opportunities for improvement, the faculty meeting minutes, not always easily found, and the student representation wasn't as clear as it could have been. Advisory meetings minutes were the same thing, little trouble sometimes finding them and not always clear if the meetings happen per policy. Would like to see some clarification in the clinical observation as part of clinical hours, make sure that's included. Continue to build clinical relationships for maternal child. They have good depth and resources, but not necessarily in the maternal child. Need some description of student health services. Would like to see that within their handbooks. The program evaluation plan, everybody could verbalize what the plan was, but not necessarily seeing that discussion in faculty minutes. Preceptors, if the process is for faculty and dean to select the preceptors, then the policy needs to reflect that process. We were hearing something a little bit different in that. And to include the breakdown of clinical hours for direct clinical observation, simulation, and precepted hours clearly in the syllabi. Recommendations, need to have a documented process for faculty meetings and minutes to make sure that they happen and it's clear where they will exist so that everybody can find them and that they're backed up. May also consider standing agenda items to help that. We'd like a response on that a documented process to the compliance officer by September 30th of 2020. Advisory meeting, the same thing. Ensure a documentation of the meeting is taking place and is available when requested. So a documented process to make sure that happens. Again, response to KSBN Education Compliance Officer by September 30th of 2020. Update the program performance report to bring current with all the data that's in use in faculty meetings. An updated report to the KSBN Education Compliance Officer by September 30th. And then recommend continued approval of the program for the time period of national accreditation if other recommendations met an expected time frame. I will just say too that in the meantime, CCNE has verified their reapproval of this program for 10 years.
Is there any questions?
This is Carol Bragdon, board member. I see their faculty licenses weren't available to you. Has that been corrected?
Yes, I have, that has been brought up to current.
Thank you.
I think the way we're going to handle this work today is that if we don't have any questions for the group that this report is for, we'll not bring them on for any comment in view of the large agenda and the time frame that we have. So if we have questions, we'll bring them on. If not, we'll be able to entertain the motion and continue on with the process. Do you have any questions? Not, we're ready for a motion.
This is Karen. I move to accept the site visit report with recommendations for Rasmussen College BSN program for the time period consistent with national accreditation if recommendations met in expected time frame.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Christina. I'll second.
Christina, did you second that?
Yes.
Okay. So a motion in a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Sounds like motion carries. Okay, Janelle, the next one.
Okay, the next one is for Pittsburgh State University BSN program. Site visitors were Bernadette Federoff and Janelle Martin. Strengths we identified for the program. The advisory board is varied and each member qualified, willing, and very proud of the program. There is high praise from alumni. They have many graduates of the program that come back to be faculty or preceptors for their current students. Collaboration is very evidenced amongst the faculty, students, alumni, and the community. Program's grant achievements are a huge benefit to students, university, and the community. The strong support of administration, and they are recognized as a cornerstone program at the university. Student engagement and positive response to the program, all would recommend the program highly. The student support services within the School of Nursing and across the campus are excellent. The leadership by Dr. Giefer was recognized by students, by faculty, by the community of interest, and the administration. The Teaching Learning Center provides excellent faculty support for development of online courses or other types of courses that they're doing. Their Gorilla Geeks IT support, both for students and faculty, are very beneficial to them. Multiple sources of funding for faculty development and scholarship. The faculty have done a great job in utilizing those resources, which are important to the School of Nursing and the university. The master evaluation plan is well developed and is easy to see how it is utilized and executed. Good use of data to make changes. Simulation experiences and use of the anatomage are a very positive learning experience for the students. Opportunities for improvement. Improve representation by students at faculty meetings, maybe try to look at what their barriers are to their attendance. Would nice to see growth in the simulation skills lab and to meet the size and growth of the nursing program. And we've already gotten word that that is actually happening. Need FQRs on all faculty members, full-time, part-time, and adjunct. Course syllabi should have both clock and credit hours indicated and broken down into theory and clinical hours. The community health course has 50% clinical and observation, may be beneficial to utilize preceptors to do more than observe in some of those settings. Recommendations, need to submit FQRs for all current faculty. That actually has been completed. Add possible licensure denial statement for the KSA 651120 to their pre-admission packet. That was actually done on site before we left and is also on the website. And then the third is to recommend reapproval of the program for the time period of national accreditation. And at this time, we've also received notification from CCNE that that 10-year approval has been granted from them until 2029.
Any questions? I guess we're ready for a motion then.
This is Mandy, board member. I move to accept the site visit report with recommendations, Pittsburgh State University BSN program for the time period of national accreditation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Becky. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, Next, continues with Pittsburgh State University. This is for the DNP program. Site visitors were Bernadette Federoff and Janelle Martin. The strengths identified, very similar to what we just heard for the BSN program. I'm not sure if I need to, I'm going to read the ones that are different. The advisory board is very, I think I already said that, very qualified, willing, and proud of their programs. They have a rigorous curriculum to anchor the programs, and they have very professional and educated leaders. Program has a mission for rural outreach that fulfills many needs for Southeastern Kansas. Program's grant achievements, again, huge benefit to students, university, and community. All graduates are board certified, pass rates are high in all the programs for licensure exams and certifications. They are again considered a cornerstone. They are the only doctorate level program at the university. Student engagement, very positive response, very collaborative from their preceptors as well. Student engagement, the leadership again was noted with this program. The IT and teaching learning center support, very good. Multiple sources of funding for faculty development, and the master evaluation plan, well developed and easy to see how utilized. Opportunities for improvement. Preceptors need to be identified for each course, clearly stated in preceptor files what courses they are participating with, and make sure signatures are present. Need FQRs for all faculty members within 30 days of hire. Like to see more student involvement representation at faculty meetings. Again, looking for those barriers to that student involvement. And then clearly delineate the student, in this case, the advanced practice student role versus the employee role in the student handbook. Still needs to be clear what that is. And that was actually done on site. So recommendations, again, were to submit the FQRs for all current faculty, and that was updated and completed before the end of May. To identify the student versus employee role needs to be clearly defined in the DNP handbook. That was done on site before we left. Add possible licensure not denial statements to the admission packet for this one as well, which was done on site. And then we recommend reapproval of the DNP program for time period of national accreditation, which again, CCNE has already given their 10-year approval, and we've heard about that.
Any questions? We're ready for another motion.
Christina, board member. I move to accept the site visit report with recommendations for Pittsburgh State University DNP program for the time period of national accreditation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Mandy, and I will second it.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Newman University, the BSN program. That site visit was done in November. Rebecca Sander and I, Janelle Martin, were the site visitors for that visit. The strengths identified, there's strong program leadership and Teresa Vetter, well regarded, very accessible. University commitment and support of the nursing program, reputation of the nursing program in the community and with clinical facilities. They have something they call Project CARE, which is an early alert system for students at risk that's been very well defined and utilized. Collegial relationship between Via Christi and Newman, there's strong support and communication. Unique components of curriculum with their prereqs. They've created relationships with criminal justice in nursing, theology in nursing, and philosophy in nursing. There's great communication between the general ed faculty and the nursing faculty to promote those relationships, and the students were very verbal about how that affects their curriculum, and they really liked that. Faculty have a very strong commitment, dedication to the students in the program. Library and library services, they've worked very hard to create relationships and improve the visibility of the library and create value with the nursing students, and they've seen nursing student utilization increase with that. They have a very unique, strong relationship with community colleges, and they use dual advising with students that are articulating into their program. And they do have a fair number of students that do articulate. Faculty communicate expectations to students and hold them accountable. They also support them in the process. They were noted for how they are mentoring students. Community supported the program and the school and the nursing program. They have a partnership with KU School of Medicine for simulation. So Newman students get to work, have more simulation opportunities and work with okay, now I'm losing my word. So their simulation involves more than just the nursing students. At times they have multidisciplinary, there it is, simulations they work with. Students seem to be prepared for the workforce. There's balance in the programs and the students are set up to succeed. And the students recognize the value and strength of the program they all would recommend. Opportunities for improvement. We had a couple to clarify the faculty orientation process and policy. Might help to include a signature at faculty completion to make sure that opportunity happens for them. And there were some student policies that we had asked or said there could be some strengthening in how those are delineated, and to include them in the student nursing handbook as well, just to help with their student health services. They don't have it on site, so to help them know what's available. Their part-time admission policy, to make sure it's clear what that is. Clarify who's responsible for cost if incidents happen. If changes in policies need to be communicated, they need to be done well in advance of those changes so that the students have a chance to understand what those changes are, particularly if they are occurring quickly. And representation on faculty governance, to clarify those expectations, describe that function a little bit, and how to get feedback and communication with them. There was nothing that wasn't there. Those were just some opportunities we felt like they could utilize. Otherwise, the recommendation was for reapproval of the program for the time period consistent with national accreditation. And I believe they also have heard back from CCNE on their approval for tenure, their tenure approval.
Is there any questions from the group? If not, we are ready for a motion.
This is Bernadette. I move to accept the site visit report for Newman University BSN program and approve for the time period of national accreditation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Karen, I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Everyone in favor say yes.
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 And opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. The last site visit, well, we have two. For University of St. Mary BSN program, Christina Rudisell and Janelle Martin were the site visitors. That was done at the end of January of this year. Strengths that were noted: strong administrative support and leadership of Sister Diane Steele, strong collaborative and dedicated faculty in the Division of Nursing. They actually had a Sullivan Award winner amongst the nursing faculty, and that's voted on by their peers. They were very pleased with that. Very, very nice award. Faculty is well integrated into the university-wide community and are active participants in that community. They have a program for mentoring program faculty called Teaching Triangles. It's an interdisciplinary process, very nicely set up. The faculty were very encouraging and positive about that. The Kelleher Learning Center has strong resources with tutor.com for nursing. They have very knowledgeable staff also. They use ExamSoft for testing and exam analysis and use that. It's very evident in their faculty minutes. Counseling availability to students, it's free on campus, and they also have referral services available as well. Students feel supported and cared for from the faculty and the staff. They come there for the smaller size and the personal touch. They feel like faculty are very personable and available and helpful to them. Community advisory board spoke very well of the university. They like the students that come there. They feel like they're well prepared and have good developing critical thinking skills. Those are a couple things that came from the advisory board. Facilities and space of the program are adequate. Opportunities, the comprehensive assessment plan is not consistent in the documentation. There's a little bit of a disconnect between the assessment plan and the faculty minutes. Just strengthen that analysis and be clear in documenting the next steps that tie to that analysis. Faculty minutes reflecting discussion, actions, and responsible follow-up person. That's not currently consistent. It's there, but just not consistent. The advisory board minutes connect the outcomes and analysis for the program, make a clear connection between obtaining and using that feedback and their ideas. Test plan policy and analysis, faculty able to talk about the policy and how it works. And ExamSoft does have a significant amount of analysis, but need to show that how they're using that within the program. It would be helpful to develop a faculty handbook for the Division of Nursing that addresses the nursing faculty roles and expectations with the orientation plan for the nursing faculty that may go above and beyond general faculty, and about things like orientation plan for the Division of Nursing, the syllabi development, test analysis process, and what to do with the results. So things that would be helpful to the nursing division. That is in process, we were told at the time. So they are working on that. Recommendations, need a faculty orientation plan for the Division of Nursing. And that's part of the nursing faculty handbook that is being developed. Submit that plan to KSBN, Education Compliance Officer, by September 30th. Need a process for advisory and nursing division minutes that makes them clear and accessible, and that discussion ties to the comprehensive assessment plan. Submit a plan for that process to the Education Compliance Officer by September 30th, and recommend reapproval of the program for the time period of national accreditation.
Any questions? Do I have a motion? I think that was assigned to Carol Bragdon.
I didn't have that on didn't indicate such on the email I got. I will read it.
Okay.
I move to accept the site visit with recommendations for the University of St. Mary BSN program for the time period of national accreditation.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Christina. I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Say yes. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Any abstentions?
This is Karen. I abstain.
Karen,
I work there.
okay, abstains. Thank you. Sounds like the motion carries.
Okay. Final site visit report for this time. University of St. Mary, the MSN FNP program was also reviewed in January. Christina Rudisell and myself were the site visitors. Strengths for the program: very strong administrative support and leadership, Sister Diane Steele. Strong collaborative dedicated faculty and Division of Nursing. Faculty well integrated into the university-wide community. Again, the teaching triangles and Kelleher Learning Center, very strong resources. ExamSoft is also used in this program. Counseling availability, students. We only got to speak to a couple of the FNP students, but again, felt very good about the small size and the availability and help they get for the program. Community Advisory Board also spoke well of the program. Facilities and space are adequate. The VA is supportive of the FNP program, and they're working on a residency model with the FNPs in Kansas City. So there's some potential there that's quite a strength for them. Opportunities for improvement. Again, it was about the nursing faculty handbook for the Division of Nursing would be helpful and needed for FNP specific items such as orientation. To the Division of Nursing, the preceptor signatures, things like that. The comprehensive assessment plan, not always consistent with documentation and minutes and as such. The F&P program is still new, but work on strengthening the analysis and documenting the next steps that tie to that analysis. Faculty minutes could be better reflective of discussion and actions and what kind of follow-up is being assigned and who's responsible. That is not as consistent as it could be. Recommendations, again, lean to the Anita Faculty Orientation Plan for the Division of Nursing. Submit a plan to KSBN by September 30th of 2020. The bylaws and the clinical practicum experience handbook are not specific enough on the criteria for the preceptor for the program. The KAR 6017-104 was that they shall be licensed as an advanced practice, a registered nurse, or a physician in the state. That language needs to be in the CPE handbook and should be reflected. It should be updated to reflect the regulation. We ask for those changes to be submitted by September 30th, 2020. Preceptor signatures for orientation completion. There needs to be a process for this to happen. Most of it is done electronically, and it can be clear, but there's not a real plan on and in the handbook that shows how that is happening. So we would like for that process to be documented more clearly and submitted to KSBN by the end of September 2020. The last is to recommend reapproval of the program for the time period. This is actually their first reapproval for the time period of national accreditation.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
This is Dee. I move to accept the site visit report with recommendations for the University of St. Mary's MSN FNP program for the time period of national accreditation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Mandy and I will second.
Motion in a second. Do we have any other discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Any abstentions?
Karen, I abstain.
Karen abstains. Motion carries. Okay, thanks, Janelle. That moves us into new business, and we have quite a list here, as you can see. Very helpful. You can see out beside the edge of that where some of these were ready for March, some of them for June. That's why we have such a list here. So, Janelle, how do we want to handle this? Do we want to just?
Well, a suggestion I would have is we had kind of talked about, I have just a brief little introduction to the IV therapy piece. And then I can either just do a brief description of what the curriculum change is. And then if there's any indication that there are questions, we can bring we have a list of people who are on the call. If there are questions about the curriculum changes, that would need to be directed to them. But if there are no questions, then we can move forward.
I see on the submission that they have, there's a briefly describe the change being requested. We all wrote in there what our request was. Right. Is that something you can just read, or is there more that you need to say about it?
There were just a couple places where I think for clarity purposes, it might be helpful. You could just read what's there. Okay. I've had a couple places where it might be helpful to have a little clarity.
Okay, so I guess we'll let you go ahead with your IV introduction and then we'll go from there.
Well, I was just going to say that we have initially had 6 requests for IV therapy to add to the PN program. And I just wanted to, as you would already know, that the IV regs are in the packet if you need to refer to those. I just wanted to reemphasize that the new regulations call for there to be a major curriculum change request to add that. There was some discussion about that. I just wanted to clarify that. And that they also regulations also state that the program should show inclusion of the 21 topics that are listed in KAR 6016-104. And there must be a testing component to it as well. So just kind of a reminder what the regulations are saying, and then to address what's in the curriculum change request.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about that from the group? Okay, Janelle, let's go to the first one.
All right, the first one is from Hutchinson Community College. Sandy Pangburn is the administrator. And they are asking for approval of IV therapy content to be added to their core curriculum that they're already using in PN 106, which is the Nursing Care of Adults 1 course.
Does anybody have any questions for that?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I should have spoke up. I couldn't get my mute button off fast enough. This is Christina. So one of the questions that came up in our KCPNE meeting yesterday was if a student, just in order, I guess, to provide consistency among the programs that use the core, if a student does not pass the IV therapy test within the course that it's in, which is MedSurg 1, does the student stop at that point in the program, or should they be allowed to continue on? That is the question that was brought to us yesterday, and there's concerns on both sides, and I feel like they're both valid. Of, you know, the student has made it that far, they're doing fine in their regular coursework, it's just the IV therapy section. And is there a way for us to differentiate that student did not pass IV therapy but still passed all the other requirements to become a practical nurse? And then the other side of that is, you know, how do you keep that student separate in the clinical side of they can't start IVs, but the other students can. So there's some gray in there, and we're not sure how to approach that. So I'd love your guys' input on that.
Great question. I would like input from all the committee if you have some. For me, it's about curriculum. In my world I live in, if I have it built into my course objectives, it would have to be covered with everything in there, or they didn't pass that course. I could not separate that out. My curriculum committee and team, that's not how we are designed, and it doesn't work like that for us. So my students would have to pass the coursework just like it was IM injections, check off, et cetera, et cetera. If they didn't pass that, they didn't pass the course. So that's how I am at my school. Does somebody else have some other insight there, how other curriculums run, or is there something different?
This is Dee, and I will chime in. Of course, we're a bi-level program, and our students do have the opportunity to take the PN exam. However, it would be the very same. It is integrated, a part of our curriculum in that particular course, so we would not be able to separate it.
Bernadette, you're muted.
I would agree with both Dee and Patsy that this is probably a curricular issue with individual institutions. It would be hard to separate this from curriculum.
Thank you for your input, ladies. I agree. That was my knee-jerk reaction as well, is I don't know how I would separate that out of our curriculum, but that's just at JCCC. My suggestion, correct me if I'm wrong, Janelle, because, you know, we've slept since then, but, you know, my initial reaction is I could separate it, but I feel like it should go back to the schools to decide how to deal with that, because I don't think that has anything to do with regulation, does it?
I think so.
Carol Moreland, do you have some input there?
Yeah, sorry, I had to get unmuted here. It was my understanding it was part of the curriculum. So they had to pass it to pass the curriculum, therefore the program. I guess I've never looked at it the other way. I don't think that was the intent of it, but I think when it says it's part of the curriculum, that in order to pass the program, you've passed all of the curriculum. But that's my 2 cents worth.
This is Carol Bragdon, board member. It was my understanding that the IV therapy was to become a portion of the core curriculum for the LPNs statewide, so that we didn't have varying, going forward, that we wouldn't have varying abilities of LPNs, that they would all be the same. We wouldn't have to have those different levels of LPNs, some IV therapy certified and some not. That it would be a core curriculum just like any other core curriculum piece. If that's not correct, I will entertain some contrary notion, but that was my understanding.
I think that the goal for the core is that it be allowed. However, I mean, as everybody knows, IV therapy is incredibly expensive to maintain that. And not everybody can maintain that, nor does every school desire to have the IV therapy as part of it. So the content, we have placed placeholders, if you will, within the content of the curriculum when we built it. However, it wasn't my understanding that it would be a requirement for every school to do that. And that's why later on in our agenda, you'll see a sample roster of how we would indicate to the Board of Nursing our students were IV certified during the program.
This is Mandy. Carol, I agree with you, and that's how I was understanding it as well. But as you all know, I'm an LPN, and of course, I've been around 15 years, and I am not IV certified. But we have talked about it in our company, and that the understanding of our company was that the whole reason for this was because of our multi-state as well. And so I'm kind of with Carol. That's how I understood it going through our regulations. So
For clarification, I too, this is Patsy. I was part of the building of that core. My faculty helped do that. And I understood the placeholders were for the fact that if the IV regs were not fully vested and fully approved by the time the core was ready to go by fall of 2020, then those pieces would have to be removed. But I didn't understand the placeholders to be for the school to have the option to remove or put that in for core. I do understand the expense. I also understand at least my employers, it was about the consumer need for LPNs that they're hiring. If I get them into acute at all, or even in other settings, that IV therapy was an absolute must. So that was a driving force for me when we worked on these regs several years ago. But now I have heard some other interpretations of that the schools have the option. But I understood the core to be that, as Carol Bragdon explained, if you adopted the core, that would also be IV certification, and it would not really be an option. This is great discussion because we do need to clarify this for further on. I never entertained the idea that some of the students could pass or not. That has recently come up, right, Christina?
That's correct.
Recently.
That just came up yesterday.
Yeah. So all things in new regs and trying to figure that out. So any other input there? Some more discussion about.
I'm going to add a piece that I heard yesterday as well, just to ask the question to make sure it's clear that there are some programs that are mandated to follow the core and others that would not be. And I wondered if that was also a reason why there are some that are thinking, is it optional or not? And why we have to have some way of knowing what schools are doing it versus ones that aren't. I didn't know if that factored into the discussion.
Also some clarification there about the list that Christina already alluded to. Was that list to let the agency know who had taken that coursework so they could list it on the site with their licensure, because we have a difficulty there of knowing when they went to school and when the curriculum was in place and et cetera, et cetera. So for the agencies, they need to have a list so they can put on IV therapy certified, that they have that certification. We're visiting about something that is where I live. I'm a 1+1 program, I interpret the Kansas Board of Regents regulations to say that my 1+1, I have a PN program and an ADN program separate. I require that my students in my ADN program come in with an LPN licensure. I see myself as a standalone LPN program. Not everybody sees that or interprets that the same, as some discussion yesterday about bi-level is a different event, but I certainly see myself as a standalone PN program and a standalone ADN program. So the word mandate, if I'm going to accept the core and use that as my curriculum base, mandated or not, that I would accept that. So more discussion, more ideas.
I
Hey,
agree with you,
Patsy.
Patsy. I think that's very valid. I guess my question is more of regulation. Is what is the regulation? Because KBOR, and I don't know if we need to take it. I don't know, Carol. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's a difficult question because of all the interpretations of it.
Carol Moreland.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, you're bringing up this roster that we're going to talk about later. The intent of that roster was never so that some students would have it and some would not. The intent of the roster is because it's not going to show up on a transcript. And you have to understand kind of the workflow within the Board of Nursing itself. Licensing handles the transcript. So they're the ones who license based off from the transcript. But then education division is the one who attaches the IV certification. And there's no way for Chelsea in education to have any idea, which programs are going to do this and stuff like that. So that's why we really needed a roster to come that says, these are the graduates from our program that have AV certification, but it was never intended that some of yours will and some of yours will not if you're teaching the PN core. That was not the intent of that roster that's in there. It's truly the workflow within our agency, and we kind of tried to make it as easy as possible, but we need something other than a transcript that doesn't even have IV therapy on it to help us to know which schools are doing it and which LPNs that we need then to make IV certified. I just wanted to throw that in there.
So if I can, it sounds like we have several questions here and we're trying to answer them all at one time and it's kind of getting a little bit muddled. Help me out, group. We have one question that is whether the students can continue through the program, each program, if they don't pass the IV coursework in each program. Is that something that we can do as regulatory body, or is that for each school to choose? And secondly, is the core, does it include the IV regs? Or do you have the option to do something different? Is there a third question there? Or are those the two main things?
I think those were the two main things, Patsy.
So where do we go from here? How do we do that? Group, help me out here. Do we need to have a task force to figure this out, or where are we at here?
Well, I think there needs to be some clarity in the regs at the least for the curriculum. And I hate even saying that for the process that we would have to undergo. But I don't know, I'm pretty new at this, so please somebody educate me. Do we have to change the regs to offer clarification, or can it be a task force? We look into it, maybe we meet with some of the schools and then create a addendum or a clarification, some type of statement?
Well, some of the things that we can do is we have an attorney general that helps us out with the legal side of our world. And they sometimes read the statute and the regulation with a sharper lens than we have, because that's not what I do. And they're able to give advice as to where the movement is or where the autonomy is in those regulations. Is that correct, Carol Moreland?
That is true. We could ask for legal counsel to interpret it. Just just kind of overview with all of you. Before the regulations are ever finally through, they do go through the Attorney General's office. So they do look at them for legality and to make sure by statute that we have the authority to do this. So that part has been done. Now, if you're looking at any kind of revisions to the regulations, it's quite a process in the real world here. And, you know, the soonest, I mean, probably the fastest, and that probably would not happen right now with COVID and all of that, would be 6 months, but it would be more like probably 9 to 12 months before revisions are going to get through. So that's just something for you to consider. Now, that's not to say that that's not the thing to do. I just wanted to make you aware of that. But, you know, as far as doing a statement or a position or something outside of regulations, in the past, we have been advised not to do that, to truly go with the statute and the regulations. So just FYI.
So I think for me, it's one of the big questions is, do we as a regulatory board and as an education committee that makes motions and recommendations to the big board, do we have the jurisdiction to be able to tell a school how they can handle their curriculum? Because we are in charge of approval of that program and we approve it as far as as we read the regulations. So I think that's one of the big things for me. And I wouldn't want to put any kind of revision. I wouldn't even know where to start unless I had some input about what we really could do as a regulatory body. Does anybody have any other comment? Carol Bragdon, you've been in this arena several times.
Good question, to say the least. I guess we maybe need to seek some clarification from the original intent of KBOR, or however those regulations first got started. What was the actual early intent? And then look at IV therapy like any other requirement, whether it's IM injections or dressing changes or any other skill that might be taught in a school. I think taking the emotion out of the IV therapy piece and treating it like any other curriculum piece probably is where our thinking ought to be. If we approve a curriculum, then we don't make exceptions for varieties of things, particularly, although there is some individualization that can occur, certainly within a school, but the basic core things are pretty much the same across the board as I understand. But seeking clarification about original intent might clear up some of this and make it easier for the schools and for the regulators to say, you know, we're not going to grant individual exceptions. You know, the rules are the rules and the rules apply to everybody. I don't know if that helps or not.
Can I ask a question? This is Karen. Can I ask a question? So was the intent of this so that LPNs would all be IV certified then? If you graduate from that program, you would be IV certified with the goal of having all LPNs IV certified?
That was my understanding.
Mine also, it was.
So
And mine as well.
it just seems to me if that's the case and the school has opted to make that part of their curriculum, if they don't meet that requirement, then they cannot graduate from that school.
I agree with you, Karen. I think the issue is, can we say that as a board? I think that's the conundrum that we're running up against. And I mean, the more I think about it, the more I look at it as kind of like clinical hours. We all know we need clinical hours, but we don't say how many hours you need, you know? And so I may walk into Joe's school as a member of the ed committee and say, wow, you're only doing 45 clinical hours. Okay, I may make note of that, but we don't have a regulation stating that that's wrong. Does that make sense? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it, is we don't dictate how many hours of clinical or anything like that. There's no regulation specifying that. So that's why I keep feeling like it should go back to the school to make that decision, because we don't have anything in the regs, to my knowledge, that says if you adopted the core, that you have to have IV therapy. So,
It sounds like it's a school issue that if this is part of your curriculum, then the school needs to say, if you don't meet all the curriculum, which is to me is a no-brainer, then you don't move on.
that's where I keep leaning too. I was asked to bring it forward, so I brought it forward, and I got a bunch of people scratching their heads. So I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I think it's a process where new regulations and introduction, it's something we're going to have to work through. There are several states in the United States that have already done this several years ago, so it might be something we could investigate. In the essence of time, I think what I would suggest we do is put some kind of task force together that could look at this and bring back recommendations to this committee, instead of taking another 2 hours to decide what we maybe don't have credentialing to do. Is that okay with the group? I mean, do we want to put a group together?
I think that that's a very good idea.
I'm happy to participate in that.
So, Carol Moreland, do we need to appoint that today, or how do we do this?
Yeah, probably, because that way they could meet and work and bring something back to September. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good to me. Anybody, Christina already said she'd like to be a part of that. I think I need to be on there. Is there somebody else that has a desire to help us work through that?
Hey, Patsy, this is Carol Moreland. I will certainly help.
And certainly I can as well.
So you think the two persons on the agency and the two of us on the committee, is the group okay with those 4 people bringing back a recommendation?
I am.
Okay, then let's do that, and we'll be in contact, Christina, and see what we're going to do and where we go from here. The 2 questions that I commented on earlier, I think that would be the 2 charges for that group.
Okay, thank you.
So does that make any changes on what we're going to approve today or not approve today for these changes that are coming? As I understand, KBOR was requesting that the core curriculum to be implemented by fall of 2020. And for those that are going to do that, this is a part of it for some of us.
Right.
This time. So are we okay to move forward with the major curriculum changes that have been requested for IB?
That
Yes.
seems reasonable to do. Yes, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, thanks for that and for the discussion. Great work. Janelle, shall we just read briefly what the changes are, and we can move through these IB regs in for these these requests?
So like for Hutch, I indicated they are already using the core. They just could not add IV therapy at the time they requested the change because regulations weren't in place. So now they're requesting to add the IV therapy piece to their adult care, adult health 1 class.
Okay, so that means next time they teach adult care 1, they will add it to the curriculum, and that's as far as it will go. Next time it's taught.
Right, they will include that, and they have the what the course objectives would be that include all the KAR pieces, what they're addressing with that content, and it will be part of the curriculum for adult health 1. So
Okay.
part of the curriculum is what I'm reading.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? Then I guess I'm ready for a motion.
Patsy, this is Becky. I have that motion. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Hutchinson Community College Practical Nursing Program to add therapy content to the PN Core Curriculum course PN 106 KSPN Nursing Care of Adults 1 with the course outcomes and competencies as defined in the core curriculum.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Christina, second. Further discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, Janelle, the next one.
Okay, next up is Kansas City, Kansas Community College, the practical nursing program. They are asking to incorporate the IV therapy curriculum into the current core curriculum beginning fall 2020 and part of their KSPN 107 Adult Health 1. So they are using the core curriculum for that course and have to just follow what the core says and the core content outlines for IV therapy.
Any questions? I guess I'm ready for a motion, and Carol Bragdon, I think you were down for that motion, so I'll have you through that without your list. You're on, Carol, you're on mute. There you go.
I'm a Zoom failure. I apologize.
You're fine. You're fine.
I move to accept the major curriculum change request from the Kansas City, Kansas Community College Practical Nursing Program to incorporate IV therapy content into current PN core curriculum beginning fall 2020. Content will be added to second semester course KSPN 107 Adult Health 1 with the course outcomes and competencies as defined in the core curriculum.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Mandy and I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes. Okay. And anybody that's opposed, say no, please. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, next is a request from Colby Community College. They are requesting to add IV therapy into their, they have actually already adopted the core curriculum last year with the IV therapy absent. And they have included objectives from the core curriculum, I think in their request. So they would like to adopt the IV therapy portion of the core curriculum.
Any questions? I need a motion then. Thank you.
I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Colby Community College Practical Nursing Program to incorporate IV therapy portion of the PM core curriculum beginning with the 2020-2021 academic school year.
I have a motion to.
This is Becky. I'll second.
And a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next request is for my school, so I'm going to hand this over to Rebecca so that she can let Janelle continue and you can handle the vote. Thank you.
Okay. So the next up is Garden City Community College, their PN nursing program. They are requesting to implement the regulatory changes for the practical nursing course to include their IV therapy in alignment with the LPN scope of practice and KBOR's approved PN core curriculum, and to do that in the fall of 2020.
Any questions? If not, could I entertain a vote, a motion?
This is Christina. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Garden City Community College Practical Nursing Program to implement IV therapy in alignment with the LPN scope of practice and KBOR approved PN core curriculum beginning fall 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, say no. Those abstain,
I abstained from the vote.
Thank you, Patsy.
Becky, this is Chelsea. So sorry. Who seconded?
Bernadette,
Bernadette.
So that motion carried, correct?
Yes, motion carried.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one.
Okay, next we have Barton Community College. They are requesting to incorporate IV therapy into their practical nursing program. They are set to include 30 hours of instruction, 8 hours of clinical. They included a table that outlines their content will be distributed over several different classes and will be truly part of their entire PN core curriculum or PN curriculum.
Any questions? If no questions, I guess we'll entertain a motion.
this is Bernadette. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Barton Community College Practical Nursing Program to implement IV therapy in alignment with KBOR approved PN core curriculum for the PN program beginning fall of 2020.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Karen.
Second from Karen. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Janelle.
Okay, next is North Central Kansas Tech, the practical nursing program at Beloit. They are actually, theirs is a little bit different in that they're asking to adopt the PN core with the IV therapy as part of the nursing care one, adults 1 and clinical 1 courses. But they are also wanting to keep their PN 102 from their old curriculum, which is a 1 credit hour course, and add a 1 credit hour course for pharmacology to the PN program. So it's not strictly just the core. So that needed to come as a major request. So those requests altogether is they're going to the PN core with the IV therapy with the addition of these 2 1-hour credit courses. There's actually no overall change to their credit hours for the program in doing that. And there is a table on 135 that shows the old and the new for you.
Any questions about that? Hearing none, I guess we're ready for a motion.
This is Karen. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from North Central Kansas Technical College Beloit Practical Nursing Program to revise the program to be in compliance with the KBOR core curriculum. This would include adding IV therapy objectives and content to the Nursing Care of Adults 1 course and the Nursing Care of Adults 1 clinical course, removing 2 non-core courses, adding a 1 credit hour course, pharmacology for the PN to the 2nd semester, and keeping a non-core course, PN 102 strategies for success. These changes for the PN program would begin August 2020.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Dee. I will second.
Bernadette, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Everyone in favor say yes.
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 Everyone opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, I have a question here. We've been at this for about an hour and a half. Can we go till 10:30 and then take a 10, 15-minute break, or do you want to break now? What's the groups? Keep going? How about if we plan on taking a break about 10:30? So we'll get through some more of these curriculum changes. Okay, Janelle, next one.
Okay, the next one, and I think if Colton, we might want to have Pat Plank come on in case, but this is a submission. Pat was, I think, kind of the leader of the military initiative, nurse initiative for the PN, and they are bringing modification of curriculum to provide an advanced standing for veterans with specific military training experience. And they've included what that major or what that would look like. So I think this is for approval of a basic core, and there's Pat. So if there are any questions about how this is being presented or what that looks like, Pat is available for those questions. So they're proposing a generic modified curriculum that would provide advanced standing for veterans with specific military training and experience.
Does the team have any questions for Pat? Okay, then Pat, you must have done a pretty good job. No questions in your face there. So I guess if there's not any questions, I'm ready for a motion.
Hey, this is Dee. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from the Kansas Practical Nurse Military Nurse Initiative to approve a modified curriculum that would allow advanced standings for veterans with specific medic military training experience.
I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second. This is Karen.
Karen, any discussion? Pat, is this a piece that any school that was interested in doing this could adopt?
Okay, good.
Yes, we tried to set it up generically enough and fit it into the core curriculums, especially any PN program that's using the core curriculum could do that. My guess is that any student who was going to a 1+1 or a bi-level program would probably go the RN route rather than the PN. So really probably more targeted to programs that are PN only.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay.
Any program could easily slide this into their curriculum.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, everyone in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thanks, Pat, for that help.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, Janelle, we're ready for the next one.
Okay, so next up is Washburn Institute of Technology, their practical nursing program. They are asking to revise their PN program to incorporate the revised 2018 PN core curriculum. All their KSBN courses are within flex hours, but they are also asking to retain their strategies for success course, which is a non-core for 2 credit hours, and add a 1 credit hour NCLEX, basically NCLEX PN review course as part of along with the core. This actually reduces their total program credits from 48 to 47 to implement that. They are planning to include IV content as the core curriculum is written.
Does the group have any questions? If no questions, I'm ready. I guess we're ready for a motion. And Carol, that was also listed as one of yours again. Carol Bragdon. Yep.
Okay, I am muted, non-muted. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Washburn Institute of Technology, practical nursing to revise the PN program, including the incorporation of the revised PN core curriculum, reduce the required credit hours from 48 to 47 credits, update course names, eliminate the clinical component for role development, add a new course called NCLEX PN, and accept the proposed course sequence with its respective credit hours.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Becky. I'll second.
Thank you, Becky. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Rebecca, I see I messed that up, didn't I? I asked Carol to read that and she was supposed to read the next one. Chelsea's smiling at me, so I see I did read that up. So Rebecca, you want to read the next one for Bethel when we get to that point?
Okay.
Okay, so Janelle, you want to go ahead and help us with the next one?
Yes, Bethel College, their BSN program is requesting to reduce their BSN curriculum hours from 55 to 52. And they want to do that by reducing their clinical practicums 1, 2, and 3. They're all going to reduce from 4 credit hours to 3 credit hours for each of those practicums. And that puts their total BSN program at 120 credit hours. And they're doing that because the school is actually eliminating their interterm. And each of the programs had to figure out how to reduce some hours. Instead of eliminating one complete course, they are asking just to reduce the practicum hours for each of those courses to get to that particular goal. So their entire program hours will reduce from 124 to 120 credit hours.
Any questions? No questions. Do I have a motion?
I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Bethel College BSN to reduce the BSN curriculum from 55 hours to 52 hours by reducing the credit hours of clinical practicum 1, 2, and 3 from credit hours to 3 credit hours each. The total credit hours for the BSN program will then be reduced from 124 to 120, effective August 2020.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Mandy and I will second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion carries. Any abstentions? I'm sorry. And motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, the next request is from Mid-America Nazarene University from their graduate program, their adult gerontology primary care nurse practitioner program. They are proposing to take 2 3 credit hour courses that they currently have and replace that with 1 3 credit hour class. They've been looking at their curriculums and they're trying to reduce redundancy and overlap in the programs. Those core courses, those 2 original courses were kind of for all MSN programs. And so this is more specifically targeted to their NP program. And then it also helps them reduce some course overload in certain semesters of the program. So they are replacing a 3 credit hour class. 6733 will now be in place and with the objectives and outcomes that replace their other 2 3 credit hour classes. So it does reduce their program hours by 3 credit hours.
Any discussion? Any questions? I guess we're ready for a motion.
Okay, this is Mandy. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Mid-American Nazarene University Adult Gerontology Primary Care NP program to replace the Nurse 6913 Healthcare Informatics Database Management and Financial Reimbursement, which is 3 credit hours, and Nurse 6133 Quality and Regulation Management, which is 3 credit hours, with a new combined course of Nurse 6733 Informatics, Quality and Safety for the Advanced Practice Nurse, 3 credit hours to reduce curriculum redundancy and overlap.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Dee. I will second that.
Thank you, Dee. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, next up, Kansas Community College Nursing Program. So this covers both the ADN and PN, are requesting or are asking for, they're doing a change in their joint. They're going to, their department has moved from being separate PN and ADN departments to one nursing department. And Susan Anderson is the director for overall for both programs, and Kathy Evelyn is the assistant director for both programs. So now that they have a joint department, they are revising their and making a joint mission and philosophy statements for the nursing department as a whole, with a separate scope of practice definitions for the PN program and the RN program, which are included here. So, and they're updating that also, not only because of the change in their department, but also the school itself updated their mission statement in 2019, and they wanted to be more in line with what the new mission statement is for the college as well.
Any questions? Then I guess we're ready for a motion.
This is Christina. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Kansas City, Kansas Community College Nursing Department to have joint mission and philosophy statements for the nursing department, RN and PN, with separate scope of practice definitions for each program.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll
This is
second
Karen
Carol
Anderson.
Bragdon. Oops.
Chelsea, do you need some help? Do you got it?
Well, I think I heard Carol Bragdon first.
Okay. So a motion in a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay. Next, we have a major curriculum change request from Colby Community College for the adoption of a new course, NS 245 NCLEX RN exam prep, to be added to their ADN curriculum. It would increase the nursing program credits from 15 to 16 credit hours.
Any questions? I guess we're ready for a motion. Bernadette, you're muted. There you go.
Okay, I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Colby Community College to add NS 245 NCLEX RN exam prep for 1 credit hour to the ADN curriculum.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Becky. I'll second.
Thank you. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
The next two curriculum change requests are from KU School of Nursing for their BSN program. They've listed it here, or they have sent 2 curriculum change requests, but they're kind of intertwined. So I'm going to tell you both of them, and you can vote on them either together or separately as you wish. They are planning to take their Nurse 471 Development of Microsystem Leader course and do some changes to the credit hours. They're going to reduce that from 4 to 3 credit hours, and then move that one credit hour to Nurse NURS 473, their Professional Development 3 Transition to Practice program. There's no overall change to the credit hours for the program. So they're adjusting the course description and credit hours and objectives to reflect that change of the 1 hour from NUR 471 to 473. So their first request is to reduce the hours in 473, and then the second request is to add that hour to, or 471, and then add that hour to 473. And I believe the motion is written to accept both of those together, if I remember correctly.
It is. It's two curriculum change pieces in our packet, but there is one motion pre-written for us. So is everybody okay with voting on those together? Okay,
Yes.
then I guess, any discussion about this process? Then I guess we're ready for a motion.
This is Karen. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from the University of Kansas School of Nursing BSN program to reduce credit hours in Nursing 471, development of a microsystem leader from 4 to 3 credit hours, change course description and objectives to reflect the decreased content time, and to transfer the additional credit hour to Nursing 473, Professional Development 3, Transition to Practice, which will go from 1 to 2 credit hours with a change in course title and objectives to reflect the increased content time. There is no overall change to program credit hours.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Mandy. I will second.
A motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay. The next one is also from the Katy School of Nursing. This is for their graduate program, DNP. They are requesting to add a 1 credit hour class, NRSG 954, which is a DNP synthesis workshop. It would be a required course for anyone in the DNP program.
Any questions? Then do we have a motion for this graduate program?
This is Dee. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from the University of Kansas School of Nursing graduate program to add NRSG 954 DNP synthesis workshop for 1 credit hour to the DNP program. This will be a required course to demonstrate synthesis, integration, and translation of knowledge and skills required throughout the first half of the program.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Becky. I'll second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Pittsburgh State University. The School of Nursing BSN program is, this is the pre-licensure BSN program, is requesting to increase the number of students admitted to the upper division, which is their junior level pre-licensure nursing program, from 90 to 95 students a year starting August of 2020. And there's included several items on how they would incorporate those extra students in clinical courses as well, and what those schedules look like.
Any questions from the group? Do we have a motion?
I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Pittsburgh State University BSN program to increase the number of students admitted to the upper division junior level nursing program from 90 to 95 students per year starting in August 2020.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Karen.
A motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say yes. Yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay. We're going to go back to a little bit of therapy here. Request is from Donnelly's program, Donnelly's nursing program, PN program. And they are requesting to bring their PN program to compliance with the revised core curriculum, including the IV therapy. And they will do that as part of the Med-Surg 1 class, as well as add 2 additional classes to the core to take effect August of 2020. They'd like to retain their NCLEX prep course and rename it Concept Synthesis. And that will be a 2 credit hour course instead of a 1. And then they would also like to add a 1 credit hour medical terminology class in the first semester. Due to their diverse population, they feel like that would be more successful for them. That would actually bring their program hours to 35, which is a reduction from the 39 they currently have. And I just wanted to say too, there is, in looking at the material for the course, just a note that it is for the PN program. There are a couple places where it says RN, but it is all for the PN program on pages 300 and 301. I actually think that's a duplicate page. So, not sure how I did that.
Are there any questions? Then do I have a motion? Carol Bragdon, looks like we have you down for that one.
Okay. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from the, whoops, wrong motion here. I move to accept the major curriculum request from Pittsburgh State University.
No, I think we're
Donnelly
College, their first one, PN. Yeah, you got it.
There we go. Get the page turned right. I move to accept the major curriculum change from Donnelly College PN program to bring current program into alignment with the new KBOR core curriculum, including IV therapy as part of Nursing Care of Adults 1. 2, add 1 non-core course, HC 107 medical terminology at 1 credit hour to the core curriculum. And 3, keep 1 non-core course from current program NU 220 NCLEX PN review, 1 credit hour, and change the name to NU 220 Concept Synthesis and increase to 2 credit hours. This would reduce the total nursing program hours from 39 to 35 with no change in prereq hours.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Mandy, I'll second.
Mandy, second. Motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, so the next request is also from Donnelly, and this has to do with the ADN program. They are looking at a reminder, this program is currently on conditional approval and not accepting new students, but they have been working on the curriculum per some of the recommendations set forth. So they are asking for this curriculum change, and it would take effect with the start of their next cohort after KSBN approval to start admitting again. And there's a chart on page 328 that shows this. They're going to adjust the Med-Surg 3 credit hours from 4 down to 3, and then increase the maternal, child, and family nursing credit hours from 2 to 3. Adjust the Med-Surg 4 credit hours from 3 to 4, and then change the name of their NCLEX RN review to a concept, I can't say those 2 words, synthesis, and adjust those credit hours from 1 to 2. In addition, they would like to drop their public and community health course and replace that with a 2 credit hour mental health course to be more in line with what pre-licensure RN programs are doing, and to be successful in the NCLEX for the NCLEX exam as well. This is where I want to just make on page 328 that shows these changes in the curriculum. There was an error. What they're doing now is a total of in the fall should only be 11 credit hours with a total of 29 for the course. And this will change with these changes. It would change to a total of 30 nursing credit hours with those changes in the program. So there's an error at the bottom. The leadership course will stay at 1 credit hour. The concept synthesis one will increase to 2, which would bring that total to 12 credit hours for the fall semester. And then a total of 30 for the program. I hope I didn't muck that up too much.
Do we have any questions?
Do we need to note those changes on there before we approve it?
The changes are, well, those things are actually correct on the motion. It's just, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, because it's showing that leadership is a 2 credit hour class and concept is 1.
Right.
So do we need to have a modification to that document prior to changing? Or would we go by the motion only?
I actually had requested, I didn't find that until your packet had gone out, and Patty has already sent me the updated document, which I can include with this, but the motion is correct in that what stated in the motion was what they wanted to have happen. It just didn't get.
Okay. Okay.
So we have the corrected document, right?
I do have a corrected document.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
Thank you.
Any other questions there? I guess we're ready for another.
Okay. I move to accept the major curriculum change request from Donnelly College ADN program to 1, adjust the credit hours of NU 209, medical surge nursing 3 from 4 to 3 credit hours. 2, to adjust NU 212 maternal child and family nurse course from 3 to 4 credit hours. 3, increase the credit hours of NU 221 medical surgical 4 from 3 to 4 credit hours. Change the name of NU 225 NCLEX RN review to concept synthesis and increase from 1 to 2 credit hours. And 5, remove NU 223 public and community health 3 credit hours and replace it with NU 224 mental health 2 credit hours.
I have a motion.
This is Christine. I'll second.
Christina seconds. Any other discussion? Everyone in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item I see on the agenda is a progress report from Donnelly College. No motion there. We just need an overview.
Right. And Patty is available if I think the letter was to bring before the board the progress they've made since the decision to halt admission and be unconditional approval and all the things that they've done. There was a little confusion, I think, with the motion. They had hoped to that we had to clarify. So they are currently not admitting. And with all the changes they've done and met, and it says in the letter too, they have met all the recommendations that we set out. And I think so they're requesting next steps. And so I don't know if you want to have Patty talk a little bit about that, but the original recommendation was that that we halt admission and that there be a a site visit again which is coming up, would be September. And I don't know, I think there's a request they had also originally requested, they used to admit in January and they were going to move to a fall admission. So I don't know if you want to hear from Patty in terms of what the letter and the update is for you, to see if that can go ahead, if that site visit can go ahead, if there's something we can do sooner. And if you want to.
So let me clarify, the motion that we had was that they were to not admit until we did the site visit. Is that correct?
Right.
And that site visit was scheduled for September.
That's when we did the site visit was to schedule in another year, which would be September.
Okay, and so what's on our agenda here is a progress report.
Right. It's just, I think, well, I don't have a motion, but
well, let's ask Carol Moreland, what do we need to set another timeline? What do we need to do here with this on the agenda?
Well, it's kind of up to you. I mean, you can hear the update if you want to, and then if you feel that they made the changes and you want to make a motion that says something different from the original one, I think you can, based on whatever you hear in their update.
Okay, group. I see that Patty's with Zoom. Do you have some questions for her before we move on with another move with this?
I'd like to hear her response or her update from her. We
Okay.
could ask questions if we need to.
Okay, Patty.
All right, thank you. When I came back last August and we had the meeting, there was clearly some deficiencies in the ADM program all the way around, things that were never carried through, things that were never answered. So our very first steps were to make sure that everything that was on any previous audits plus the September audits were taken care of. In looking at some of the past items from the very first RN class compared to the second RN class, which is just graduated in May, we did find some things that probably weren't necessarily needed to be taught, and things that were not necessarily contributing to the students' success of understanding what they need to understand as brand new RN students. So the very first thing we did was to get a consultant. We did get Donna Ignatavius, and she was instrumental in helping us go through curriculum, go through the syllabi, and make some of those changes. One of the other things that we did first and foremost was I was unable to locate a program evaluation plan. So that was one of the first things that we did, was to do that, because we needed to evaluate not only what was going on currently, but what went on in the past before we decided what changes needed to be made. So once we got the program evaluation plan together, the next step was that it was kind of clear to me that we were not following testing guidelines. There was no direction for the faculty, and we did have 4 brand new faculty members. So we sent them to boot camps. We sent them to the NCSBN's item writing. It seemed like everything that we were doing was mostly out of tests, all of our textbook test banks, which is not what was going to contribute to the students being successful. So we did implement testing guidelines. In January, we did start with ExamSoft so that they could understand what the KR20s look like, how to analyze their questions, how to pick what was good, what wasn't, how to modify. So we've made a lot of changes. We've made a lot of advancements. The faculty feels more able to teach a little more confidently now. We've seen differences with the students even, where they're saying it feels like it's just a little more put together. It doesn't feel as random and disorganized as it was. So we were wondering what our next steps are. I know that we're not allowed to operate right now, but my bigger concern is with COVID, which nobody can control. you know, you won't have the chance to talk to any of my RN students when you do come back for an audit because they're gone now. So we're just kind of wondering what's the next steps and what does the board recommend that we do to go with this, because we're still not sure when anybody gets to audit again.
So your students that graduated in May, do you have any results of NCLEX yet?
They're just now getting their dates. They've had a really hard time getting to the dates. Everybody's trying to test.
Are you using ATI or any comprehensive predictor?
We do ATI. We had a 95% of the students are going to get an 85% or above based on the predictor. And then we had 90% of the students had a 90% chance or better of doing the predictor. And they're all doing weekly meetings with me right now. We're doing some stuff just to keep them current until they do get their dates and they get to test. Some of the dates are into July, the end of July at this point. Yeah.
Patty, it sounds like you've done a lot of really good hard work. So you guys have been busy. So congrats on all of that. One of the questions I had, is there any way, or have you surveyed your graduates yet and asked them about your input? Because you could potentially utilize those surveys for us. I don't know who's visiting, but it's, you know, that would be an option, is for the graduates to speak, so to say, through those surveys.
We do. We have our graduation survey, and then I did an end of semester survey because these people that graduated actually went through 3 directors of nursing. So yeah, it wasn't a good thing. So I did an end of semester survey just to ask them if they had seen improvements. When the board was there before to audit, nobody would have recommended the ADN program. They were just downtrodden. But we did get out of the survey, 90% said they would now recommend the ADN program. They just felt like it wasn't so random, and they felt like it was very random before.
So would any of those students be willing to be available even on a Zoom call when the board does come?
I believe so. They're little worker bees, but you know, I've asked them, I said, could you come back if we have you just part of the class come back to talk to them? They said as long as they weren't at work, they would. I said, well, it's kind of important. They're like, oh, yeah, we'll try. But I think they would.
Thank you.
Any other questions we have for Patty?
Patty, how many graduates did you have in May?
In May, we had 9 out of the 15. And I will tell you that the reason we had not 15 is because we did have to expel students for cheating. They all found the chegg.com site, and I know, it was very timely that we got the letter from Janelle when we did, because 2 weeks later I had to do investigations for cheating. And they kind of over cheated. So it was a very clear cut case, because they even included the teacher rationales in the answers. So they over cheated, and in accordance with our handbook and in accordance with our Donnelly ethics and mission, we did expel the students.
Any other questions? So with that report, are we still on target to do a visit in September, whatever that looks like, because we don't know? What is the group? We don't have a motion for that. Is the group okay with that, with the report that we got from Patty?
I think that, I mean, I would be fine with moving on in September.
Okay.
I would be fine with moving on.
Okay.
So if Patty's asking for next steps, is there something that you, what is your request, Patty? Do you have a specific request for what those next steps are?
We were just wondering if, so with the thing we sent in December, we had also sent our normal admit dates are January, and we had sent something saying that we wanted to actually pull ourselves out so we had a chance to get the program wrapped up a little tighter and start our admissions in August rather than January. So we didn't know if there was a chance that we could start in August and then have the admission or the audit in September, or if we did need to wait for September and then maybe change that letter to not say we wanted to start in August and keep it in January, based on when the audit would be, if we had to wait for the audit to readmit students.
Well, my comment is, I thought maybe I'm misspoken here, but I thought part of the review would be for your pass rates for this group to see what those results were. Is that correct?
I think that would be the evaluation piece that we need of the changes that have occurred.
Okay.
So hurry in that some. All of us in schools having students test, those dates are being pushed back because of the availability for Pearson VUE. So now that's my comment. I would like to see that number before I would approve that. And that would mean it would probably not take place until September. I understand the need here. Sure I do. But what does the rest of the group think?
I would suggest moving a start date to January so that we can have all the data we need to make an educated decision.
I concur.
And that's our normal start date. So if I mean, it would just stay the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Good plan.
Once we get past this hurdle, if that was wanting to change for the next time, that probably wouldn't be an issue for us. But is the group okay with that decision?
This is Carol, yes.
Okay.
Karen, yes.
Becky, yes.
Christina?
Mandy, yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sounds like that would be the next step. So we'll follow along with what we already have on the schedule, and then bring those pieces back with that review.
Okay, thank you guys.
So I think we're ready for a break as promised, 2 hours. It says 10:35, 10 or 15 minutes. What do we need? 15 minutes? 10 minutes. Karen says 10 minutes. 10 minutes, so that would be 10:40, 2:45, we'll start back and finish the rest of the agenda. Thank you. This is Patsy Zeller. Colton, are we back on the airway?
We're still there. Yeah.
So everybody is coming back on?
If I'm judging by video, it looks like about half, a little more than half of us.
Okay, we'll wait a few minutes. Thanks for your help.
Mhm. Actually, it looks like the only one that's not back on video is Chelsea, that we had before anyways.
Okay.
Oh, and there she is. So I think everybody's here.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and reconvene the meeting and continue with the agenda. The next thing I have on the list here is 2019 NCLEX first-time pass rates. I think the main thing we need to do here is give permission to be able to publish that on the website. Is that correct, Carol Moreland?
Yes, that is correct. And because we can't publish it until after you all have had a chance to see it. And then if there's any below the 75%, and if there's any letters or anything you want sent or anything along that, you just need to direct Janelle what you want done.
Okay, so the regulations that we're working with right now, I know we have new ones in the works, right?
Yes, but right now,
Okay.
working with the, with 2 years below 75, we generally would send a letter of concern and request an analysis. If it's 3 years, then you could also add a site visit per your, or whatever your recommendation would be.
And the new regulations that we're working on have some changes to that, and that 75 becomes 80%, and some other changes with that about how often we would visit. But for right now, that's the regulations we're working with. So discuss in the group about what do we want to do? Do we want to send letters or ask for reports or some discussion?
So it's less than 75% for 2 years, Janelle?
Yes. That would be, for 2 years, most likely would be a letter of concern with a request for some type of analysis to be done on what the reports are and maybe some recommendations for actions they could take. If it's 3 years, you could also then say that we might need to do a site visit, and it could be as well as the report. I think you have only one in that situation. And they have been providing, they did a report and provided a 6-month update, end of 19. The rates are still under, so that would be your recommendation.
So the questions are, do we want to do something different than what we've done historically with the regulations we're still working with? Or do we follow what we've done before, which is, as Janelle just outlined? Any suggestions?
Don't we need to follow our current regs? for
Well,
that?
that's what the regulations say. We could, do something a little more aggressive than that if we want to, but that's what the regulations say. So that's how we've done in the past till those go through all the channels. So that would be the, would just be to follow that.
And the new regulation is going to set the pass rate at what? The minimum?
80.
There's some other changes there too about when the visit would take place and all that. There's some others there, but it does move the mark to 80.
Well, if I'm reading this correctly, we only have one school that has been below 75 2 years in a row, unless I'm missing it.
We have two actually in the RN. We have Neosho is at 2 years, and then Seward County is at their 3rd year.
Oh, okay. I did miss it. Thank you.
I would to suggest that we do what we've been doing. The 2-year people get the letter, the 3-year people maybe a visit. Given the unsettledness of the pandemic and what will roll out in the fall and everything that everyone's dealing with, I'm afraid, to be more aggressive might get lost in the shuffle. Would it be effective? So it would seem that, to carry on as we've been doing would be appropriate.
I agree with Bernadette. I think that, we should just continue following the current regs until the new regs are in place.
So unless I hear objections to that, it sounds like that's kind of the flavor of the group. Anybody else have some more comments?
This is Carol Bragdon. I support that.
So we do support that this can be published. That's the first question. The second, that we would ask for those letters and then visit for the one school that is below that. Okay. And of course, we're all holding our breath to see what this year's students are going to be with all the shift we just did in the spring, right?
Yeah.
Put it out there like it is. Yep. Okay.
Praying every day.
Every day. Yeah, we're all doing math problems every morning before we get out of bed. Yeah. Okay, the next thing I have on here is Pratt Community College strategies for RN NCLEX pass rates.
Yes, Pratt has actually been in contact with the board. Their program in 2018, they had some problems. They did have a 83% pass rate in 2018, but they had already decided they had not admitted for the next year and did a major change in their curriculum and several things. And so they did start admitting again, I guess they didn't have anybody who was in the program to take, they didn't have an NCLEX pass rate in 18. So the 2019 rates have come out and they are again below 75%. So the school had just contacted us. They'd sent in this report. This is what their, nothing that we required, but that they sent in. And I know that Dr. Calvert, who's president of the school, had also had some discussion with Carol and with concern and wanted to make sure they were addressing concerns for their programs. So Diana submitted this strategies, what they've looked at for their program. And I guess just the report for you, if you have any questions about what they're doing, if there's any the questions they may have of you. I believe they are online, but particularly if there's any questions about what they've done, if there's any additional recommendations for them with what's going on for their program.
Does the group have any questions? We asked for an update, didn't we, Janelle?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they don't believe that this is a curricular issue, or that it's more of a testing and remediation issue?
That's, and we can get them online, but to tell more about, but this is what we received in terms of what they're planning to do. I think some of it may be stability issue as well.
Right. They totally redid their curriculum, and this is the first time out.
Right.
It would be hard to really put a finger on anything that they're too new with their curriculum.
What the report, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Janelle. It sounds like they have all new faculty again.
They do. There's quite a few new ones. So it'll take a while to get their feet going again.
It's hard to say this or to even know, as we're all aware, but does it sound like for the faculty they currently have that they're planning on staying a while? I mean, because that seems to be an ongoing issue.
Hey, Patsy, this is
Yes.
Karen Moreland. Maybe could you let them come on and kind of just share a few things? And that might answer some of these questions.
That's what I was going to say.
That'd be great. Colton, who do we have on for Pratt?
Colton, you should have Dr. Calvert and Diana Mintzner and Monica, I think.
It'll take us just a minute to.
Give us just a second. I think I saw 2 of them for sure. Monette D is one of them, and then Diana Mintzner are the 2 that I see. And Dr. Calvert may be with one of those. There's Diana.
Hello.
Hi, Diana.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
So the group has some questions.
There's.
Or would you like to give an overview, just kind of a synopsis and a refresher of what you have in your document?
Diana, do you want to review your documents?
Sure. The document I had originally sent out was kind of some of the plans that we had, because the 2019, the 2019 group, of course, was here before I started. I didn't start until July of 2019. But the pass rates and so forth, we missed that by 1 student. If we had one more student that had passed the NCLEX, we would have hit our 75% mark. So that was unfortunate. When I originally put the document together, this was to show that what our strategy plans were to try and improve the pass rates for the class of 2019-2020. And since that time, a lot of the strategies we did implement. We did work together with our Student Success Center. They did come over and work with the faculty to help with the advising, to start working with our students to work more one-on-one with them, to get the advising, to see, to help them be more successful, worked more with them one-on-one, questions in the class, after class, set up times with them, especially office hours, more where it made it more convenient for the students to come visit with them if they had problems or questions and concerns about the content. And so that we did implement, which helped a lot. So the students had more access to the instructors. So that was a big plus for the students, which they really like that fact. We did have ATI resources that were used, that were in use, but they weren't being used to their full potential. So we did contact our representatives. We set up a meeting with them. They came down and they did orient the faculty to all the available, everything that we weren't fully using. And so we did implement a lot of uses of that. We used more of the remediation. They showed us how to do that. We did more of the proctoring of the assessments that we had. So, and then the remediation, when the students did their practice assessments, we went through, looked at what they were weakest in, got them to do, get in there and look at more of their weak areas, and kind of made assignments out of those to come back so we could help them strengthen those weaker areas. So we did that. And of course they did work with us, and we submitted our curriculum to them. So they did a PN and an ADN alignment to our curriculum, which help us focus more on our content based on what they had. And that did make things a lot better. So everything kind of aligned with the resources that ATI did have. And then, of course, when it came into April, and this is for both programs, in April, 4 weeks prior to graduation, we did have the students start working on the virtual ATI, where they would go in 1 week, they may focus mainly, do practice questions and review on like med surg for 1 week, 1 week focus on fundamentals, 1 week focus on just the basics of the basic cares and so forth, and did that for 4 weeks prior to graduation. Then of course their NCLEX review, and the virtual ATI of course was like scheduled for 12 weeks. So currently, while they're waiting to test for their NCLEX, they still have access to that virtual ATI and are still accessing that and using that to help them while they're waiting to test. So they're not just sitting there kind of twiddling their thumbs and being nervous, which of course they are. They still have access to that ATI, and they're still using that to do their practice questions that they need to do to help them. And they are NCLEX questions, so they are still using those to help prepare. And then of course, and a lot of this ATI stuff was implemented into assignments to match whatever topics were being taught in the course throughout. So we did utilize the ATI a lot more than what had been done before. So, and the students really liked it. And as for using PowerPoints in the course, we did use them, but instead of using just full PowerPoints, some of the instructors took some of that information out there and just took bits out of the course itself and used a lot of those questions that were at the end of the PowerPoint and taught information off of that and did case studies off of those. So they kind of flipped the classroom a little bit and made the teaching a little bit more interesting. And the students really like that more than the instructor just standing there and just talking. So the instructors did a little bit more, got things a little bit more interactive with the students. So that's what we did to change things up a little bit. And the students seemed to really like it, and they were a lot more engaged. They started out a little bit bored because the instructors were just standing there talking. And when I started looking through things and seeing how the numbers were and what can we do to change things up. So when I kind of made the suggestions, a couple of the instructors just really ran with it and then just flipped it around and did things they wanted, asked, well, what do you think of this? And I said, I think it's good, try it. And when they did, the students loved it. So I'm really excited to see what happens with their NCLEX scores. We've had a few call. We've got 4 of them scheduled in mid to late July to test. So I'm really excited to see what happens with their testing. I know a lot of them, they get in there and they've done a lot of practice questions from the ATI that's been available to them. So I'm really excited to see how they do.
And then I would like to address just a couple of points about faculty. I think Christina, perhaps you had mentioned the faculty. I do want you to know we have done some review of salaries and we are competitive. So we don't really feel like it's salary that has contributed a great deal to the turnover. We did have a couple of instructors the last few years who were eligible for retirement, and one took an early retirement due to some health issues. So part of that's also timing. And we provide professional development opportunities for our nursing faculty extensively, not just coursework, but also travel opportunities and opportunities for them to review other situations. So we do feel like we have really tried to work with our faculty on that. And we do have a couple of former students teaching with us right now.
Yeah, 2 of our instructors right now, one is a PN instructor and one is an ADN instructor, are former PCC graduates. And then one of our ADN instructor or adjunct instructors who did clinicals was also a PCC graduate. And actually he was here when, at the time when PCC lost their accreditation, And that was one of the big concerns that the students had coming here. And of course, he explained to them, because he is now, he is getting ready to start his clinical practicums for his DMP. So he's talked to a lot of them because that was their big concern. And he said, hey, you can do this. You know, look at me, this is where I'm going. He said, that's not, you know, going here. But we've got a great enrollment coming up this fall, and some good students coming in, and word of mouth has really gotten out that you know, the program is a good program. It's a very good, we do have new instructors here, very excited instructors about the nursing program itself. So that's why I said I'm very excited to see what happens with these students, because this was a very good, very excited bunch and really eager to learn. And they did. And the instructors we have are young and they're strong instructors. So all of us, I think all but one, are all new instructors to teaching here at Pratt. One of them was a PN instructor and has moved up to the ADM program. So she's not new, but she's new to a different program. So hopefully the ones we have, the program will continue. As
And
for
before we, oh, sorry, Diana, before we
No,
turn it back to you for questions, I just want you to know Dr. Calvert is on the line. For some reason, he's just not able to participate. Technology is wonderful, but also very challenging.
Diana, I have a question for you or Monette. Another big piece for that NCLEX is your own internal test construction policy, test item development analysis piece. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done with your own internal piece, not the ATI?
What we do is the internal piece. We look at the, there's different areas we have to look at the, when the test is designed, we look at the test itself, we look at the knowledge base. There's a percentage that they have for knowledge. There's a percentage that they have for, my mind is going blank, for the knowledge part, for the critical thing, for the, oh, I am analysis. I am seriously going blank here. The different sections of the components of the, I'm trying to, actually, I've got it right here, that the different pieces that they have to go through. We look at all that to make sure that the test questions, the percentage of it, that it is all met in the exam itself. We look at the questions themselves, make sure they're appropriate questions, make sure that there's a good stem to the question. And then we look at the answers, and what we try to do is make sure that we stimulate that critical thinking in the question itself. So, and look at the answers to make sure that those answers are going to challenge them enough to see if their critical thinking is going to, can be stimulated enough to answer those questions appropriately. So we do, I apologize because my mind has just gone blank on the portions of the that we look at. I've got it right here.
Diana, are your students doing the comprehensive ATI, or are you waiting for them to get their green light from ATI before they're permitted to take boards?
On the comprehensive, I was trying to think, I think we had, I was trying to think, I think the ADNs, I'd have to look back. I think the ADNs did do the comprehensive testing at the end to look at that. And then on the ATI, they work with the, I know the instructors, both the instructors are following them along with the mentors that are assigned to those students doing the ATI, and looking to see how ready they are for the testing. And I will say this, I know we've got some students that have been kind of reluctant to use the ATI, but those students that are using it are following along very well with it. And so, because we do get a weekly report and see how they're doing, and the instructors do contact the students and give them the encouragement and see where they're at and see how their scores are doing. And we do print out the report, and we can go in there and look and see what they're still struggling on. So we do stay with that, up with that weekly. ATI is very good about sending out their reports to us every week, and we do get to look at that.
Diana, first I would like to, having a lot of new faculty is not always a bad thing. So, but one of the things I was wondering, you said earlier that you were one student off of having a 75%, and student population can make a big difference on your first time pass rates. Because if you only have, let's say 10 students, if one student doesn't pass, you know, it's dropping you from 100% to a 90%. So that can make a big difference. So how many students did you have graduate in 2019? And how many students are you planning on admitting for 2020?
I was trying to think how many students that graduated in 2019. I wasn't here then. I don't know, Dr. Calvert.
24 passed and tested.
Right. Yeah, 24 passed and tested. And of those, there were
17 out of 24, I think.
Right, 17 out of 24.
That's Dr. Calvert's chiming in on my phone here.
Okay, thank you.
And then this year's entering class, Diana, they were asking about.
This year's entering class, we have a total of 30 ADNs coming in and 19 PNs coming in. So we have a real big class coming in this fall. And we do, the ADN portion has, we've got our maximum 10 on the Pratt campus, 10 on the Winfield campus. And then we have, or no, I take that back. We have 20 on our online group, 6 on the Pratt campus and 4 in the Winfield campus. And then for PNs, we have 10 on the PN campus or Pratt campus, and then 9 PNs in our Winfield campus. So our PN population has expanded. Our online students have really grown this past year for admissions compared to what they were last year. So we're really excited about that. I've been reading a lot of their, and when we did the admissions, I've been reading their admissions material and their interviews, and just reading the materials. Of course, our interview process was a little bit different this year because of the COVID. But I've been reading a lot of the information on each student since they've been admitted, and of course, we go by their T scores and everything, and a lot of real high T scores on these students coming in. So really excited about them.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? I'm a little bit excited, but a little bit nervous about the NCLEX. Like I said, the NCLEX scores coming up, because we did have to switch everything like everyone else to the online, and then finish up, you know, our virtual clinicals like everyone else. So, but the students seem to transition very, very well. And so that was kind of a blessing with that. So I guess the question for us is, what's the next step? Carol Moreland, I'm going to put you on the spot. Historically, I don't know if we've been right here before, but what would be the next step here as far as NCLEX pass rates and checking on that for Pratt Community College?
I am just going to insert one little thing, is that Pratt is on the schedule to have a follow-up site visit this fall. So
okay, thanks for that.
Already on the plan.
And
That's really the plan.
That answers the question. I didn't even look at that. Thank you. So Diana, I'm sure you knew that too, didn't you?
Yes, it's coming up. I believe it's October 13th and 14th. I've got those dates.
Well, that's the answer.
I've got those dates memorized.
I think you got those dates really early.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be the plan, to have that site visit and then look at those results and then go from there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions we have for the group before we let them go? Okay, thanks a lot for your input. That was very helpful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, you'd think as long as this agenda would be about done, but not quite. The next thing on here is discussion for COVID-19. And it says, and nursing program changes for 2020. So I think some of the questions that I've heard in general, we heard some yesterday from some of our meetings with the ADN group and the PN group, was, I mean, for us down the road, nobody knows what fall's going to bring, or if we're going to have another spike, whatever. Everybody's listening to the news. But what's the expectations of this committee for those groups, as far as if there is a change, if there's not a change, when do we let you know? When do we know? Et cetera, et cetera. I have all the questions, not sure I have all the answers. So I understood that was the question. In our packet was the Department of Education's view on that some time ago, that they put out a statement about that, about their look at that. So that's a reference. I also know in our meeting for ADN educators yesterday, it was brought to everyone's attention that some of the groups, like Organization of Associate Degree Nurse Educators, had a statement for their input. ASIN also has a statement. I got back on that website this morning and looked at that, and there's some templates or some examples of what they have put out there as far as their expectations for the following semester in fall, with the pandemic still looming. So I think that's where this discussion is. And so what would be the expectation? That was the big question for our fall work, and how are we going to handle that? And how do the education programs know if they're in compliance or not in compliance, or we're in uncharted waters? So that is the discussion piece that we put on here. Some comments?
Well, this is Dee, and my first comment would be, I believe we have to follow regulation, correct? And
That's correct.
we don't have the option to do any sort of rescheduling, just to put that out there, correct?
Rescheduling.
Like for example, if somebody wanted to put it off until the spring semester, is that an option with the regulations?
You mean content, like move some content from fall to spring or whatever?
Actually, just reschedule the visit.
Oh, a visit.
The visit. Isn't that what we're talking about? Yeah.
Well, I think we're talking about all of that. At least that discussion is about the visit, but also if you're making, we were given permission to do what we needed to do for spring to get through the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Is that extended? So I think there's both things.
Okay.
So let's talk about the visit. I know down here we have a virtual site visit piece that's coming up later that we're going to talk about an example of that, but some discussion. So Dee, you don't think that it should, that the visit should be put off, that we should try to do something to stay on schedule with what needs to be done?
Right. Actually, I just posed the question for clarification is,
okay.
If I understand it correctly, according to regulations, we don't have that option. Like, for example, ACEN has come out publicly and said, you don't have that option. You can move it up, but you cannot move it back. And I just was clarifying that's our same options with this committee.
The first answer to your question, as everybody knows, and also, is we have to follow the regulations. So
right.
I think another question that they had is that if someone was not able to do any kind of hands-on clinical at all, were we okay with graduating them when it's very specific in the regulations? At least the way I read them.
Right.
That would not be an option. So once again, I guess we have a multi-faceted discussion. So what do you want to talk about first?
Can we touch on the clinical first?
Sure.
Betsy, one of the things that I did is I put out a notice when we were doing our interviews and our acceptance of the new students, of letting them know that there is a good possibility that your graduation will be delayed. And I cited the regulation and that we have to comply by these regulations in order for you to graduate. And if we are unable to comply to these regulations, then we will have to delay your graduation. And I just put it out there for them. And due to that, some students chose not to come in, and that's fine. But you know, on the other hand, it's like, you know, we've got to get that done. And somebody asked about the executive order, and the executive order does not explicitly state that clinical facilities have to accept us. It just states that as health education people, that we are considered essential. But that does not say that a facility has to take us in. So, and that is something I've heard, and, you know, I've spoken to, I have the luxury, or I guess, I don't know, pick a word, of knowing a lot of attorneys. And when I asked them about that, they were like, you know, the state of Kansas would have to explicitly say, you have to take in these students for it to be a requirement. And even then, if it's a privately owned facility, it may not still, you know, there's loopholes that they can work out of. But nonetheless, I digress. And I think that for me personally, that's how we're handling it is, you know, I'm planning ahead the best I can, but I feel like withholding graduation until they complete the clinical hours necessary, or at least complete enough clinical hours that I can sleep at night, you know, to get it done.
I think that's some of the discussion. One thing I have to highlight here a little bit is that when those executive orders come out from the state, one of the things that we as the board and as the committee supporting the board we have counsel, and that is the Attorney General, and we have to listen to their interpretation of what that executive order means for us as a regulatory agency. And I have learned a lot since last January about all of that. And so we asked for interpretation of that and what it really means to us, with that legal team being our guide. So not that I was going to tell you what I thought the executive order meant. I'm not going to go there, but to listen to that counsel first before we decide how we make moves with the board, with this committee supporting the board and following through. So I appreciate that input. The regulations do say they have to have some hands-on clinical. You're right. Some of the other discussion was, what if, I mean, we have a whole page of what ifs. What if we have to put that delay? Then we've got a group of students that need clinical, and we have a new group of students that need clinical. Our students can't hardly handle what we're bringing them now. And so there's another question looming there also. I just keep going on with the questions, and I'm not letting anybody discuss and find the answers to the ones we already had. So let's go back to the clinical. Are we all on the same page that the regulations say there has to be a hands-on clinical component for that to be handled? Are we in that arena? Yes.
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 And we all are about following the regulations. As Christina stated earlier, like with the visits and the pass rates, we do have to follow the regulations. That's right. That's where we're at. So that being answered, changes. We already established, D, that the site visits will not be able to be moved or put off. We will have to figure out a way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So the schools can count on that still happening. Is that correct? Or am I right there?
My interpretation.
Okay, and so then the next thing would be about changes with what kind of autonomy, what kind of parameters do we have for fall of 2020? As I referenced, NCLEX did put out a piece that they had, and I mean, ASIN put out a note, and it stated something like they were going to allow for the accrediting persons to make some movement with their delivery, but if they found something that was going to work and they were probably going to make it permanent, it would have to be declared before December 31st of 2020. So they were giving some autonomy to the accreditation groups to to change and do what they needed to do. But if there was something that they were going to continue with, some of us have found some things with this online. We talked about that yesterday. That has worked pretty good for our programs. And maybe we want to keep that. Well, if we're going to make it permanent, we have to get permission from the accrediting bodies. So that's just a template of something we might use. I don't know. What does the rest of the group think?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the board has been extraordinarily accommodating to us and trying to help us through this. And I like the template of, we're going to, currently we let Janelle know, and thereby, the education committee and board of what temporary changes we're making to get through it. But I like the idea of continuing that as long as executive order or whatever the crisis stands. But if it wants to become permanent, that we have to make a major curriculum change. I just feel like that's very clear and concise.
More comments?
And just to let you know, a piece, whenever I get those statements from people about what they're doing, I do have a spreadsheet I'm keeping to keep track of what things are happening. So if the executive board or if Carol has questions, if they get questions about what's going on in Kansas, I'm trying to keep up with that so that we have all of you, as you're sending in your information, we can kind of keep track of how people are doing and what their plans are. And I probably got a third of you that have given me something for fall.
So, Carol Moreland, I'm going to ask again, do we need to make a statement that says that for the education groups to know, or how do we handle this?
You can, if you want to make it very clear.
What does the group think?
This is Carol Bragdon. Perhaps we ought to just have something that we take to the full board, because this is a pretty important issue and we would want full clarity from everyone. So perhaps we could take a memo of understanding, or even a motion, if you wish, Patsy, to the full board stating that this is the committee's position, and get the full board behind that in case there's other thoughts, and discussion that maybe we haven't thought of, although we've probably done most of it at this point.
Absolutely, I agree. The big board needs to be and give their blessing or not on this. We have other statements out there on the website, but those are not really the thing that we're suggested that we do at this point. So I don't know where this document lands. If it's, we can talk about that at the board tomorrow, but just as a suggestion of what this group thinks, are we in agreement that we probably need some kind of clarity statement for the group to be able to know? If we're all in agreement with that?
Yeah, and that could then be put on the website, or, appropriate in the newsletter, and varieties of communication things that, again, we appreciate the struggles everyone's going through and admire the creativity that people are putting together to get their students through, but we still have to educate them adequately to protect the citizens of the state of Kansas. So it's all uncharted territory. We just have to do the best we can.
So is this group all in agreement that I'll take this information to the board tomorrow, and they can decide if we can make a statement, and then that could be done through Carol or through the executive team? Is that an agreement?
Yes.
That's what I'll give report for tomorrow then, that would be our suggestion. I don't think we really need to take it to a motion, but that would the suggestion that's come out from this group, and then we can work it from the board tomorrow. Any other discussion that needs to be in that number P with discussion? I mean, those few words have a lot of impact there. Nothing else? Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. Questions regarding implementation of IV therapy regulations. we haven't talked about this enough, so we're going to talk about some more. Would PN programs be allowed to add the IB content competencies to a program cohort currently in process? I think that's a question just for discussion. Janelle, elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, I think the question came up actually earlier this year because the regulations did come out in January. And so in March, one of the questions was, if since the regulations came out, if a curriculum change went through, say that they've already admitted students, they've already started their course, say somebody puts a request in September to add IB therapy content, would they add it to the current cohort or would it have to wait till the next cohort? And I think it was just a question of, would we be okay, or is it okay to go ahead and add it if there's notice to the students that it's going to be added, and how much lead time would they need to do that?
So that was a question in March. Is it still a question?
Well, it may or may not be, as a lot of people that are doing it now are putting in place for the fall. We may have some that come in September that want to add IB therapy content. It may not be added until the spring semester, but those would already be cohorts in process. So I think it's a matter of the question is it okay to have it approved in September and implement it, next week? Or is there, because I think a lot of the programs have already given students a heads up that they're going to add it when they can, but it may be less of an issue now. I don't know if anybody else has heard. I haven't heard that that's still an issue. I heard it more back in prior to the March meeting, but I may be wrong if anybody else has heard differently.
I think it wasn't an issue initially, but I think the question, you're right, Janelle, was because it came up in KCPNE in December, was how are we going to handle it if and when IB therapy regs get approved? And initially it was, is it going to be a minor curriculum change or a major curriculum change? And then we didn't have our meeting in March. So there are schools, like I'll take me for example, I was still under the assumption that it wasn't going to be a curriculum change if I didn't do my curriculum change for the core. So I was incorrect in that, obviously, but so I have to put in a major curriculum change in September. Now all my students know that we plan on implementing IB therapy. So for like my school, for instance, if I come in September and the board approves that major curriculum change, can I go ahead and initiate that curriculum change in the spring? Because that's when it would normally be. So that would be the question.
I do think the question about whether it needs to be a major curriculum change is still yes. Because that's what the regs say. And
right.
we took that question kind of off the table.
Yeah.
I will pose a question. The IB therapy is actually a part of a course in any program, whether it's a PN, ADN, wherever it's at. Could we not allow the programs, if they have a cohort in process, to bring it forward in September, for example, and add it to that spring semester, if that's the way their curriculum is set up? So the cohort would actually be in process, but they're really not going to implement it until the spring semester. So September would make, I think, fairly good choice on that. So would that be permissible for these programs, or would that answer that question?
That would answer the question.
Okay.
Any other discussion there? I think as long as I'm in agreement, as long as we're notified of that change and that class is yet to come, it isn't a class that's already happened and we're going to sprinkle it in or whatever. It's actually planned. I think that's where we're looking at. Is everybody in agreement of that? We need to have what the plan is. Okay, so I think we have an answer to that. Is that okay with everybody? Number 2 is, how is KSBN notified of course completion? And we have a sample completion roster. This is what we were talking about earlier about notifying the agencies so we knew who could be tagged with IB certification. And I think we have a sample roster in there.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yes, one of the number 23 in the regulations just say there has to be a means to verify the student has successfully completed that content. And as we discussed earlier, because not everybody's implementing it at the same time and it doesn't show up on the transcript, we are going to require, that's what the sample roster is. This is what standalone courses have to turn in this roster. So that's the way that we can make sure that those students who pass NCLEX also get their IV certification on their license. So we are going to request that this will be on the website, right, Chelsea? I think that that's our plan. And to use that to then send to KSBN with the roster of students that complete the course where they're, or complete their IV therapy content and pass all their content. And that we know then those students, when they come for licensing, have that completion. So it was a question on how we were going to do that, but I think, but since we've missed a meeting and we've kind of talked through this, that ended up being the plan, and how we would like for that to move forward is to use that roster.
Any questions about that? If there are not any questions, I think we have a motion for us.
Yes, this is Christina. I move to accept the sample roster for students who have completed IV therapy within the PN program be used as a template for the PN programs to notify the board of students who successfully complete IV therapy within the PN program.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Mandy. I'll second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. Next thing on our list is virtual site visits, a reasonable extension of accreditation, Department of Education. We already talked a little bit about that. And a draft policy for KSBN. That's the draft that you saw in the on-site packet.
And I should clarify, it's not really a policy. It's actually, we have our survey visit guidelines. And what I've done in the on-site packet is a kind of a new draft that would include the opportunity or option for a virtual site visit. This is how other states are handling kind of keeping their accreditation visits on a schedule, or their approval visits on a schedule, and being able to complete those. The Department of Education, the reason we put that in there too is just kind of to reflect, they're asking us to give reasonable extension. You know, in what it's basically what we did for April. We had 3 site visits that didn't happen because of COVID. There were travel restrictions and whatever, and those will be rescheduled. But out of that, I've talked to some other states, and that's how they're handling the opportunity is to get approval from their boards to do a virtual visit if that seems reasonable. And so the draft guidelines basically are what we already see for our survey visits, but there's a piece that comes in about halfway down, some new content about virtual visits. And this is up to you. These guidelines can be revised. Basically, my suggestion, or what I ended up putting in this, has to do with reapproval visits are probably the most right for a virtual visit. We already do a lot of pre-work with the self-study. We might have to request some additional documentation that we would usually look at on site. And we would still be working with the administrators to provide Zoom meetings with administration and faculty and whoever else we need. We may not even need to go on site for, say, a reapproval visit. When it comes to initial site visits for new programs or focus visits, we might want to modify that to say virtual visits might be acceptable, but there might be cases where we say no. Initial visits, I think right now I have initial visits just need to be in person because this is a new program. We would want to see, we can do everything we can by electronic, but at some point there needs to be a site visit. And I think, so the guidelines are about that. It's giving some flexibility and direction to me as the person who schedules those and working with the programs to say, this is eligible for a virtual visit. This may not be, but I think it's a reasonable way to handle a lot of what we do. There are a lot of programs that, kind of tick along pretty well, and we wouldn't may not need to do that, but would want to leave it open to do the on-site, especially if there are programs that go to a more online format. There, a lot of that is going to be available online, so there will be ways to do that anyway. So that's what's out there for your perusal and discussion, and the possibility of using those as a way to continue to do our visits with maybe less need for travel and on site, especially if we find ourselves locked down again. Because fall is looking pretty busy right now.
So I see we have a motion here to accept the draft that's there, but is that what we want to do? Or do we want to put a team or a couple people together that can maybe rewrite this or check this out and make sure this is how we want to go with our guidelines?
That's up to you. I put the motion there to if it was something you were comfortable with, if it's something you would rather do a little looking at and see if there are some other changes you would like to have, that certainly is up to you.
I did a little bit of look at some other places, and some of them do a virtual, but they also have a caveat in there that they would follow up with a on-land visit or on-site visit to follow up after the COVID was over. It would not be as extensive. They wouldn't go back through it all, but it would just be check and balance. All of us that have done school visits know that when you're on ground and actually at that school, you learn a lot of things that you didn't know to ask that question. And so that's one template I saw. I don't know. What does the group think?
Yeah, so I will address or at least speak to that as a visitor. It is just invaluable as far as I'm concerned to the site visit. What you see in those self-studies can be excellent. I mean, I've been involved in some that I read the site visit and I just thought this is a perfect, wonderful program. But when we got on site, we had a very different result. The very opposite I mean, I've had situations where maybe perhaps the site visit was not perhaps as well written. So you kind of went in with, okay, we'll see what happens. And it ended up being just a very good visit. So I agree, Patsy. I don't know what reference you found as far as finding that. I do know the ACN, they are going to be doing virtual visits in the fall, but they do have a clause in there that they may keep the process, reaccredit, but will be doing some sort of an on-site at a later, or giving them that option or opportunity. So I will just say that I do believe the actual site visit is just very valuable. So that's my comment.
Could we have an opportunity to review that KSBN policy and then put some information out?
We can. It seems to work best for our group if we designate 2 or 3 people that can kind of work on that and then submit another document. I realize we'd have to do that fairly quickly. We can't wait till next January to get this done, right? So we need to work on it fairly quickly, and maybe it could be submitted to the executive team on the board, and we could, if with your permission, we could do that, and I'll put it to the board tomorrow. That would be a suggestion if that's okay with everyone. That moves it along a little quicker because that team can meet and make some decisions or from there. So is anyone interested in helping rewrite that? Dee, I'm going to pick on you a minute.
Yeah, I actually would be volunteer.
And Karen said she has her hand up. Okay. So the 2 of you with Janelle, does somebody else want to help do that?
I'll help, Patsy. This is Bernadette.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Christina, you and I already have our hands full with something else, if you're okay with that. Okay. So it looks like Dee, Bernadette, Karen, and Janelle.
Great.
So I'll send you the link that I had of what I found, just so you have some ideas out there. And
I can share the ones that I used also to put this together.
Okay. And I'll just mention to the board that we have a task force working on that, and they'll have something presented that you can send to the exec team, and then the board can take it from there.
Okay.
So we have some guideline for the schools and for Janelle. She needs to know what she's doing, right?
It would help.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else for that piece? Okay, unfinished business, 2020 nursing and MHT program site visit schedule.
So a couple things I'll mention on that is we do have 3 site visits from April that are needing to be rescheduled, and one of those already is. We're hoping that, you know, on ground is not going to be an issue for fall, but again, that's going to have to be addressed. I think when we get there, we're planning to go ahead and get those in there. I think I have people to do most of those visits. I don't have a couple of the folks we're doing along with an ASIN visit, and I do need to kind of check in and see if they've got dates for those. I don't have those yet, but Diana was right. We do have Pratt scheduled for October 13th and 14th, which is not on here. And I do have Kansas Wesleyan rescheduled for September 23rd and 24th. And I think I have Rebecca on for that visit. The one thing that will move is the LMHT program. Larned had a new campus for the Osawatomie program. And they had to interrupt their program and delay, so they would have normally had a graduating class, I think, coming up in July, but that's probably going to be delayed. So we probably won't see that visit come back on the calendar till spring at the earliest. So that is one that comes off. But otherwise, I think, so Colby and Donnelly, we all are going to have to redo the PN, so we'll probably put them at the same time as we're going back for their ADN and just do those together.
Do you already have dates for Colby?
I do not.
Okay.
Do you have dates for Donnelly?
No. We talked about but have not confirmed. So I will try to get with the folks that have volunteered and make sure we can. The only thing we have to be aware of in there is the board meeting is the week of September 14th. So I'm trying to keep visits out of that week.
Okay, so any questions about that?
Yep.
Okay, Janelle, I guess if you need something or find out those dates and it doesn't work for the person who's already volunteered, we'll have to do some.
I'll reach out if we have any conflict to see if I can get anybody else in there.
And with the new guidelines, virtual, we'll just have to see.
Right.
Okay, the next thing is petitions. Petition for permission to retest for 11/11 to 5/8.
Right. So we have 11 petitioners. Thought it was interesting of the 11 this time, 9 of them are 3 to 4 years out. I'm getting a lot of calls. So we'll have more come September, but those are the 11.
So are you ready to have a motion for that?
I guess we are.
Okay. I move to approve the petition for permission to retest summary, excuse me, from November 11, 2019 through May 14, 2020, which includes Delphina Cham, Linda Litwinski, Darian Patoya, Norma Aguilera, Sandra Matoya, Megan Sellers, Ashley Emig, Rachel Moore, Marilyn Vidito, Ashley Kuhn, Nicola Onyelanusu.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
D seconds. Any discussion there? If not, everyone in favor say yes.
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 Everyone not in favor say no. Abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Agenda for September. Looks like we have 2 things on there. NCSB and nursing education approval guidelines.
I just want to mention the reason I put that on there, and it's okay to leave it, but they've come out with some new guidelines. They're looking at some things other than first-time pass rates as indicators for schools. So I wanted to put those out there and maybe have a little discussion too, if there are things that It's a way to look at nursing programs and what we do on site visits. I think a lot of it we already do, but to make sure we're being inclusive of the things that look for possibly precursors to those rates going down. Some of the things we've already talked about, how important it is to have stability within a program, and faculty that have more full-time faculty than adjunct and part-time. Again, that creates the stability. So put that on there to discuss, and those guidelines are actually available. NCSBN has them. There's a version of those available on the website as well, and they're very, very well done research. I attended their conference that talked about the research they did going into this and what that looks like, and it's pretty compelling to look at. So thought that would be good to have for September.
Yeah, it's a great resource for people that are looking at approvals. I mean, there's some tidbits in it that's pretty good, especially for new people doing that for the first time. What about workforce survey data?
That was something that came up from one of the members, and I guess I would like some direction on what data is wanted, or what are we trying to answer, or what we would like to do with that. I know there are some states that present the workforce data for the state yearly, but I wasn't sure if that was something that we've done in the past that I wasn't up on, or what specifically we're looking for.
Well, I know the big board has talked about this some, and I think that's, for me, that's really more in their arena than it is for education.
Okay.
Actually, that came up from a presentation that was done like in March before the compact went through, and we were looking at how do we figure out workforce, the pipeline coming in, coming out. And there was some discussion, I know, with Adrian as well about, is it possible to collect Kansas data through the National Council survey? And there was some discussion about maybe some potential not starting from scratch and so on, just so we know where are our ADN nurses, where are our BSN nurses, where are our APRNs, how old are they, how long are they going to practice, what's going on there. And so that's an item from, I think, probably a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And I think it's as timely now as it's been. And certainly if there's some groundwork done by National Council that Kansas could tap into, that would be great.
So is this something that we need to put on the full board's agenda for September, Bernadette? Is it more full board than it is us, education? Or does it encompass?
I think it probably came to Education Committee because it came out of KACN that time.
I see.
So it came from the Education Council. So I'll defer to you if you think that's a full board ish, and it probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I make a comment? This is Adrian.
Sure.
We have already started collecting that data. It was part of our upgrade to the compact, and I don't remember the exact date that we implemented that particular feature, but obviously it's going to take a little bit of time to gather it because it's done at renewal time, but we are starting to submit data in our daily uploads to National Council.
And I think we did have some discussion of, okay, so we have this data, what are we going to do with it? Who's going to analyze it and that type of thing. At the time, there was some consensus in the KACN Council that the schools would be willing to step up and to help with that, because certainly, that's an increased workload for the board. So I think that's something too to entertain going forward, should that be an issue.
And the National Council does have a task force and a team that does that survey and aggregates the information into basically a set of information for both state and national. So we will be able to take advantage of some of that. Obviously it's an aggregate, but I'm not sure what date that occurs, but obviously it's going to take us just a little bit of time to gather all that information.
Yeah, I think that would be really a step forward for Kansas in terms of planning, both for practice and education.
So Janelle, can we, or I can make a suggestion tomorrow that be put on the agenda for the board meeting. Maybe we'll have some more movement on that and we can make some, as Bernadette has very well put, that who's going to analyze it? What are we going to do with it once we collect it? That's always the saying, you take the blood pressure, but what do you do with it, right?
Right.
So,
I just wanted to make sure it didn't get dropped because I knew it had been.
I
in the
appreciate that.
past.
okay,
Okay,
so we
very
can move
good.
that. Okay, well, believe it or not, we have made it to the last motion, adjournment.
I move to adjourn the Education Committee meeting.
I have a
Second,
motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Christine is ready to go. So second, do we have any discussion? All in favor say yes,
Yes.
Yes.
and opposed say no. And no abstentions. So I thank you all for your time today. I do have to do a shout out to Colton and to Adrian, Carol, the whole team, and Janelle. Without their help, I'm not sure I could have showed up today, right? Because this is tough. This is tough for everybody, and it's a new arena, but we did quite well today, I think. And I thank you all for your help and your input. That's what it's all about. So I guess we'll see you tomorrow at the board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.